Hello everyone. Today I will be featuring the Pan-Asian Tier 6 DD, the Fushun. I hope that I pronounced that somewhat correctly, at least you guys know what ship I'm talking about. The matchmaking is Tier 7, which is pretty common. Sometimes you get Tier 8, sometimes you get Tier 7. Once upon a blue moon you might get lower tier matchmaking, but that's so incredibly rare it's probably not really worth using in a comparison or in a vid. Now first things first, the base health is 14.1k health, which is the same as the Gnevni's health and 300 less than Anshan's 14.4k. Now, based on the looks alone, you can probably already tell that this is pretty much a Gnevni slash Anshan clone, and the stats and comparisons I will be comparing it heavily to these two ships for this very reason. The reasoning is, of course, the Gnevni is a silver ship and the Anshan is a premium that has been in the game for a long time, so everyone is fairly familiar with the stats that I'm comparing it to. The speed is 38 knots, which is exactly the same speed as both the Anshan and the Gnevni has. The Fushun, however, has a rudder shift of 3.5 seconds though, whereas Gnevni and Anshan both have a 4.4 second rudder shift. What this means is that while I want to slot rudder shift on my Anshan and on my Gnevni, I can get away with slotting acceleration mod on the Fushun. Considering you also tend to play a lot more within smokes with the Fushun than either of the other two because you have a different type of smoke, being able to slot that acceleration mod is really good and a significant advantage for the playstyle alone. Now, they all have identical guns. Fushun, Anshan, Gnevni, they have exactly the same 130mm guns for 5-second reload and terrible turret traverse, 30-second turret traverse. They both have 7% fire chance. The Gnevni has 1% higher fire chance at 8%, but 1% difference isn't really much to talk about. The torps are pretty much almost identical between the Anshan and the Fushun. 2x3 launchers, 8k in range, 60 knots of speed, 14.4k damage, 79-second reload, pretty damn long reload. And the only difference is really that the Fushun has deepwater torps, while the Anshan does not. This means that Fushun torps can't hit BDs, but in return they have 400 meters better concealment, meaning 800 meter base conceal, which of course means they are extremely stealthy, which is pretty damn useful. Now, Gnevni is the one, of course, that gets the shaft in this comparison. Gnevni only has 4k torps, or 4km torps. They deal slightly more damage at 15.1, and they are significantly faster at 70 knots, but they are pretty much only useful for YOLOing in because, well, 4km range is extremely anemic for torps. So this naturally means that the Gnevni is the least versatile of all these ships. The AA is the same as the Anshans, which is slightly better than Gnevni's, but ultimately it's not really much AA to brag about. I mean, you're not going to be slaughtering any planes left, right or center with these things. In fact, it's unlikely you'll be shooting down much of anything at all. The Fushun actually matches Gnevni's base conceal, which is 6.8, and if you run concealment expert, I think you reach 6.1, I'm pretty sure, 6 or 6.1, something like that. So the Fushun does have a 200 meter concealment advantage over the Anshan. Ultimately though, she is a far better Gnevni and even a better Anshan. So, well, I hope you didn't buy the Anshan like I did, because this ship is pretty much just straight up better. I mean, they both share the same torp range and so forth, but there are some marginal stat differences, mostly the stealth, the fact that it has better stealth, better rudder shift, which means you can slot the acceleration mod. The big difference is the smokes though. The Anshan has to resort to Russian smokes, the same smokes that the Gnevni uses, whereas the Fushun, of course, has these special smokes that last for 70 seconds, 30-second bloom time, 80-second cooldown, which means the smoke downtime is extremely small. And it's not like you can't YOLO in with these torps as well. I mean, they're still 60 knot torps. They are extremely fast, and they're certainly nothing to underestimate, as this Indianapolis hiding behind this island found out the hard way. So, it's just a really good ship, except the difference is the Anshan was already a really good ship. The difference is that this one also has these excellent smokes available, and you already have a default stack of 5 smokes, which means you don't even really need to run Superintendent to still be able to play heavily within smokes with this ship. So the big loser here is of course the Gnevny, the silver ship. I mean, 1% fire chance doesn't make up for 4 kilometer shorter torps. And it doesn't have the smokes the Fushun has either. So Gnevny in this comparison is without a doubt the really big loser. Now, do I think it's overpowered? That's a bit hard to say, because it's still only 4 guns with 5-second reload, and the glacial turret traverse means that you kind of have to spec either expert marksman or you have to slot the turret traverse module. You're not going to blow anyone away with raw DPM, because, well, 4 guns with a 5-second reload, that's not exactly impressive DPM, is it? I mean, I'm pretty sure Nicholas, the upgraded Nicholas has a 4-second reload. I'm pretty sure the Nicholas does better DPM than this one does, even though it does slightly less damage per shell. It does of course play significantly differently though. You can play it in more of a gunboat role thanks to the flatter arcs and overall just better performance of the shells, but OP is a bit debatable. The torp damage isn't going to blow anyone away either. I mean, it's 6 torpedoes on a 79-second reload. That's a really long reload for only 6 torpedoes. So, once again, not really the end of the world. So, the ship is strong. It's consistent. It's stronger than the Anshan, but the biggest difference between this one and the Anshan is really the fact that this one has just better smokes. That's really the fundamental difference there. So the Anshan is able to torp DDs, this one is better able to torp cruisers and battleships. Once again, debatable difference there, just how much better is deepwater considering you can't hit a DD. But it is certainly a strong ship, and I would probably say that I mean, I definitely say it's stronger than Anshan and it's stronger than the Gnevny. Is it overpowered though? Hard to call. I mean, of course the biggest of the biggest losers here is naturally going to be IGN DDs as usual, because, well, IGN DDs don't really have much going for them at all anymore these days, especially the ones around tier 6 and so forth. I mean, this one will eat alive any IGN DD with considerable ease. It can catch up to them. They'll have a small spotting advantage, but considering how fast this thing is, it doesn't matter. And honestly, it can just force them away, force them to retreat with complete ease. You note that impossible to hit sign that popped up. That was because my torps were locked onto the Fubuki, and that of course is one of the things with these deepwater torps. Now, I've seen a lot of confusion in the YouTube comments whenever I decide to torp. I mentioned once that I dropped preemptive torps on Akuma, and half the comments were, "Shakalol, Flamu, why are you trying to torp Akuma? You can't hit Akuma with those torps, herp-a-derp-a-herp-a-derp." And that's because people don't understand that these torps, the Pan-Asian DD torps, are hard-coded to hit only ignore DDs. They can hit all cruisers, all battleships, all carriers. The only thing they cannot hit is DDs. So they scrapped the whole draft method and they went just for a straight hard coding. It hits everything except DDs. That's how simple it is. So, of course, that's why, as usual, YouTube comments were of questionable intelligence, but that's not exactly uncommon, is it? The ship itself, though, I mean, this game we are down to we're actually 7 versus 7 at this point. This is a fairly close game. We do have the cap advantage, and I am trying to ambush anyone pushing up this way, but it does look a bit bleak at this point, since it seems like they're kind of content to hide at their cap. And that's of course a bit of an issue that you see quite often in this game, is that people don't understand when they need to make a move, even when the game is kind of being lost. Julius SR popping up. I did smoke in time so I didn't get spotted, but I think he decided to panic turn away anyway. I think he just saw my smoke, I'm not certain. And, well, he's going to be turning away, and it's unlikely my torps are going to be hitting anything at all. I still, by habit, I'm extremely wary of torping if there's a DD in front of me, but that's something you kind of have to keep in mind. You can torp. This is one of the few DDs that can torp from the backline, or well, not from the backline, but you can torp behind friendly DDs, which is of course a significant strength, because you don't need to wait for the enemy, for your friendly DDs to clear your line of sight, to clear your area of torping. You can just fire away your torps as you wish, because they can't hit DDs. So they will just go underneath your friendly torps or friendly DDs and just go straight for the enemy. I still need to get used to that though. You can tell I'm still by habit, like 2 years of ingrained habit of being careful of not hitting the enemy DD. It's kind of hard to shake that off. See if we can kill this Budionni. That's a Budionni dead. A bit of a kill secure. I think he ate all the mass torps coming in. And at this point, it's hard to see us losing this game. Are you going to have any sort of monster games in this ship? I mean, you can if you get matchmaking with a lot of battleships. These deepwater torps are of course excellent at punishing battleships. They don't deal that much damage. I mean, you actually lose damage in torps. Going from the tier 5 to the tier 6. The tier 5 torps, I think, were 73-second reload and 16.7k damage. These ones are 79-second reload, which means 6-second longer reload, and they deal 14.4, so you also lose 2k damage, 2.3k damage per torpedo. So you are losing raw torpedo DPM, significantly so. But in return, of course, you gain a much better ship itself. It's the basic Gnevny gunboat, which can take on almost any other gunboat at the same and even higher tier. All you need to do is kite away from them and make sure you're not sitting still and taking the fight at close range. Because of course at close range, Russian DDs tend to lose to US DDs. It gets a bit different when you get to the Kaba, because Kaba is such an extreme example, but in general, the closer you are to each other, the bigger the advantage of the US DD, and the further away you are, the bigger the advantage of the Russian DD, because of course you can see the arcs and the shell velocity and so forth means that it's really good at harassing from range. Default fire chance is 7, pop flags on top you get 8, Demo Expert you can get 10. I'm not sure what build I'm running here. I mean, Demo Expert is certainly an option on this DD, but one can debate how valuable it is. Dropping the torps, of course, since I saw him turning, dropping preemptive torps in the way he was going, and I'm gonna keep shooting this Iron Duke. The torps are very scary. That's something you gotta keep in mind. The torps are extremely scary. These deepwater torps are so very hard to spot unless you're running hydro, that especially at low tiers, I think these are going to be punishing a lot of players, because they have no idea they're coming. They don't see them. Like, torps that would normally not hit battleships or cruisers are hitting them, simply because they get no warning time. Like this guy, he's probably seeing them now, and by that time it's far too late. I mean, he sees them right as they pop up in his... He sees them right as they're about to hit him. 800 meters, it's practically nothing. And I'm not really sure how much of a fan I am of this mechanic, because it makes hydro such a must-have, and well, it puts great emphasis on the importance of early positioning. But considering the last 2 years, all wargaming has been doing has been nerfing IGN torpedoes, especially the detectability of IGN torpedoes. They go through all this effort of pretty much killing IGN DDs as torpedo boats, and then they release an entire line with practically undodgeable torps. I gotta question the game design, the logic behind that game design. It seems a bit backwards to me. Regardless though, this game does finally end. Not really that special damage-wise, but I felt like this one showed a bit of everything. A bit of gun damage, a bit of torpedo damage, the smokes, the speed, and so forth. I was able to basically go through their spawn and go all the way to the other cap during the same game. So, not the most impressive damage. Team score-wise, I did top the scoreboard. Not really that impressive in sense of XP, but this isn't really that special. It's an Anshan. It's a slightly better Anshan. That's really the easiest way of summing this ship up. Detail report wise, not as much gun damage as you usually get, but it's pretty evenly spread. Both my guns and my torps pretty much did 50-50, and that's something you can get pretty used to when playing this. You are able to use your guns a bit more in this one than you can in the Anshan, simply because you have more access to more smoke duration, which means it's a lot safer to gunboat from the smoke than it is in the open. Regardless though, let me show you guys my recommended build, since you do want a bit of a specialized build when playing the Fushun, because just like the Anshan, the big weakness is the extremely slow turret traverse. Right, as usual, I will start with the modules. Now, the first thing you should get is the hull upgrade. It gives you health and rudder shift, and the default range of 10.8 is more than enough to tide you over until you can afford the range upgrade. Consumable wise, priority number one is probably the smoke generator, because the smoke cooldown is so short and it lasts such a short time that having the premium smoke is a huge advantage. Followed it up by premium damage control, and if you can afford it, premium engine boost. Upgrade wise, priority number one is main armaments mod 1, and the second slot, well, here it depends. If you're willing to respec your captain and get expert marksman, then you can slot aiming systems mod 1. If you don't want to respec your captain and get expert marksman for your Fushun captain, then you have to slot main battery mod, because your default turret traverse is so damn slow at 30 seconds that it's practically unplayable unless you use something to alleviate the issue. So either get expert marksman or main battery mod 2. If you are getting expert marksman, then you can slot aiming systems like I'm doing here. The AA is really not that special, and more importantly, you use so much AP and you want to be landing those citadels that the increased accuracy is actually quite nice to have. Finally, a propulsion mod, engine survivability is extremely important, and acceleration. Now this is a bit different than the Anshan, because on the Anshan you have a default rudder shift of 4.4 I think, so you have to slot steering gears to get 3.5. On the Fushun you already have 3.5, so you can get away with slotting the acceleration mod instead, and considering how much you play in smokes, the acceleration mod fits better in the Fushun's arsenal than rudder shift does. Captain perks wise, priority number one, preventive maintenance, followed by last stand, followed by survivability expert and concealment expert. Now, as I mentioned, if you don't want to slot the turret traverse mod, then you have to get expert marksman. One or the other is, in my opinion, pretty much mandatory on this ship. After that you can get adrenaline rush and torpedo armament expertise. Now, for the sake of testing here, the last 2 points I put into jack of all trades, because it cuts down reload time by 5%, and if you run the flag November Foxtrot, that also cuts it down by 5%, then you actually get your smoke cooldown down to a pretty absurd 72 seconds, and considering it's active for 70 seconds, that means that you only have a 2-second downtime. Now, I like to call this build the Beijing smog build. Oh god, I just triggered all my Chinese viewers again. Anyway, I hope you don't take that too seriously. It was a joke. Don't sue me or report me as you tend to do. I will talk to you guys next time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.